My name is Amy Ballard, and I am a math teacher and instructional coach at Brashier Middle College Charter High School in Simpsonville, South Carolina. I am an ASCD Emerging Leader for 2018, and this is my 18th year in education. I've had a variety of roles, from administrator, classroom teacher. I'm also serving as an instructional coach, have been an adjunct professor, so I've been around and done a lot of things. But this pandemic is definitely the strangest and most challenging thing that I've done. So in addition to being a math teacher and part-time instructional coach, I have my own 2 children and a husband, and we are all working from home. Thankfully this week my children have their spring break, and we all fortunately have our own places. So my son is working at a desk in the kitchen area, my daughter is working at a desk in her room, my husband is working at the dining room table, and I am working at a card table in the extra bedroom. So thankfully we all have our spaces, but it's definitely been a challenge, and just trying to keep everybody in their own space and quiet when everybody needs quiet, hence me being outside to make a video. So it's definitely interesting. So today is my first video journal, and I just finished my workout, so I look a hot mess. But it's 9 o'clock, and it's kind of nice because I used to have to get up at 5 a.m., so I'm enjoying that. But I've got a Zoom call with my students at 11, so I've got to hurry up and get ready and eat my breakfast and all that. My own children started their spring break today, so it's going to be a little bit different, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I'm about to go live on a Zoom call with my students and help them with geometric and arithmetic sequences. I don't really know of another way to help them as opposed to just like doing a live class and teaching, so I'm going to use Pear Deck. We've used it before, although I just kind of played around with how to see what they're seeing on their screen. Like there's a dash that you have to go to, and I didn't realize that the first time because it was the first time I was using it, so learning curve. And so I will record a little bit of what we're doing in the call.
Just a normal vanilla cake.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I have worked out and taken a shower and eaten breakfast, and that's about the extent of it.
I pretty much just done biology today.
Still working on biology, huh? What all do you have to do for it?
Well, this week we have to do another web class that's due Wednesday, and then another hot topic. So I was working on a hot topic.
Gotcha. Hey, Emma. Not that I'm not saying hey to the rest of y'all. It's just hard when you don't turn your video on. Does anybody do anything fun for Easter? Or like this weekend? Plus you have Monday and Tuesday off.
I don't think so.
We're making a lot of stuff for it.
Making a lot of stuff?
Like baking.
That's cool. Okay, so that is the U.S. and the curve for coronavirus. And then the last one I wanted to point out was South Korea. And Michelle Taylor did this one, and it was I was so surprised by it because we talked about when we were learning that we have this inflection point where it levels out. And I want you to see how incredible this one is. So it's exponential until it gets right in here at like day 14 or so, and then it levels out. And it was the only one that we did that has leveled out. And I thought it was crazy. It was really awesome how she did such a good job with that. So right here, this is what she put for the precautions or whatever that South Korea has taken. She said they reacted very quickly. They closed schools, public institutions, and other gathering places. They developed a test within 3 weeks and have enough labs to run the test. They have drive-through testing, an app that tracks the location of people who are infected so others can avoid those areas. And she even noted, it was funny because my husband came in a little while ago and was like, I heard that 29681 is like one of the hotbeds of zip codes for coronavirus, like in Greenville County. So, in the Five Forks area. So if you live there, I do. I live kind of out. I really live in 29644. And so we've been like debating whether to go to the Publix at Five Forks or the Bilo in Fountain Inn. And my husband's like, you need to just stay at the Bilo in Fountain Inn. So pretty interesting stuff. The last one I want to show you is the last coronavirus is an updated South Carolina graph. And I did this yesterday. And so the data when I did it, the last I could get was April the 8th. I did put the deaths in here. So those are the red dots at the bottom. I also, I had the school closure as a label, and then I added the stay-at-home order as a label. So you can see our curve in South Carolina. And when I was talking earlier about the changing your viewing window, like if I just hit minimize to go out, it can end up looking kind of weird. But if I really want to change things, I go over here to this little thing, and then I can change the coordinates on my x-axis and my y-axis. And that's also where I labeled them. So a couple of you didn't label it. I didn't take off points on your project, but you really need to have your labels for your scales on your projects and graphs. If you were sitting in class right now, we would have watched a video about an oil spill and about all the danger and stuff that it has. But right now what you're doing is just looking at those methods and telling me which one you would use and why. Which is a common ratio. And that method can be modeled with an exponential function. You're exactly right. I see a couple of people with that. And that is an example of a geometric sequence. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen just so you can make sure that you get that and have it all correct. But that is what your answer should look like. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is just how to name these things. So this might be just something that you write down. Take a look at this. So you can kind of see how everybody else is feeling. People are still dragging their dots around, but stop dragging your dots. Back when I first started teaching, we didn't have Remind. We had email, but you didn't really have smartphones. Well, you didn't have smartphones. So if it was a snow day, the way we found out was by a phone tree. And so somebody would call you and they had so many people they had to call and they had so many people they had to call and that kind of thing. So that's what this problem is about. So the phone tree is when one person calls a set number of people, they call so many people and so forth. So the question says to write an explicit definition to find the number of people called in each round. Okay, so the first round there were 3 people called. And then the 5th round, there were 243 people called. And so we have to find the explicit formula. So some of this is just completely crazy and different. But one of the things that I tried to do when I first saw or learned that we were going to be at home was I switched to my units around. We were supposed to do exponential functions at the end of the year, and I decided to go ahead and do them now, because the spread of coronavirus follows an exponential curve. And so we have done a complete project on exponential curves and the spread of coronavirus. Each student had a different country that they were responsible for. They got to choose, and they analyzed the spread of coronavirus. It's been really interesting. And then today I shared some new data from them. I shared about the US, I shared about Italy, and I shared about South Korea, because they've already reached an inflection point, and so now it's turned more into a logistic curve. So it was really interesting. I've also had a couple of students who've reached out to me because they found stuff that I shared to be interesting, which is one of my favorite things. So that's been really neat. One student, I had them do an activity where they had to, it was on the New York Times, but it was these dots going around so they could see how the spread of coronavirus is working. And so she shared it with her mom and sent me a screenshot. Well, I guess it was her mom, her family, and she sent me a screenshot of the text message thread that they had. So I thought that was really neat. And then today, a student just sent me a video about the spread of coronavirus and how it follows an exponential curve. So the kids are seeing stuff out and they're responding to me, which makes me really happy because it's really hard to keep them engaged. I do some synchronous stuff, and like I did today, and then I do a lot of asynchronous because I know they've got brothers and sisters that they're sharing computers with. They've got brothers and sisters that they're keeping while their parents work. They've got just a lot going on. And so it's hard to know what to do, but I want them to have a way to escape too, because sometimes doing schoolwork is just a nice way to think about something other than what's going on. And then of course, just trying to be patient and understanding with all that they're dealing with. But it's really exciting to me when they share stuff that they found. That helps me know that I made the right choice by switching exponential functions and by doing the COVID project to begin with. One of the things that I've really tried to do is get creative with how to stay in touch with my students. Thankfully, as a high school teacher, I had already used a lot of technology. They were used to Google Classroom, they were used to Desmos, they were used to just a variety of things. And I get bored a lot, so I like to try new things and see how things are working. So that has not been much of a learning curve for them. The learning curve has been not being able to give feedback in a way that is easy for them. I'll provide comments in Google Classroom, but that was not something that I had to do really before. I was able to just talk to the student and tell them kind of, what they needed to do, that kind of thing. And so a lot of times when I provide feedback in Google Classroom, they don't see it, so I have to send a remind. And so that's been tough. I have done a lot of synchronous things. I make them available by recording and letting it be asynchronous if they need it. But I think a lot of my students just prefer the synchronous class and being able to see their friends and talk with one another and that kind of thing. I also decided to do so. I've been wanting to try Goose Chase. I had used it like as a participant, but never as a teacher. So a couple of days ago, I decided that I was going to really get into Goose Chase and figure it out. And so I created a Goose Chase scavenger hunt for my students over the weekend just for something fun. I knew that some of them are just getting bored. Some of their posts or for classroom have been like, well, tell me what you're doing for fun, this kind of thing. And so a lot of them are just watching Netflix and not really having a whole lot of fun. So I gave them a Goose Chase and it was amazing. I had 15 challenge or missions originally, and I had 2 students finish it in 30 minutes. So I've since added some more challenges. I've got a gift card that I'm going to give the student who finishes in first place, just to give them a little bit something fun to work for, and that kind of thing. So those have been that Goose Chase, and then a couple other technology tools have been some of my fun things that I've done for me to keep me excited and engaged when I can't see my students. So today is a makeup snow day. Yesterday was as well, and my own children are on spring break. So yesterday I didn't do very much. Today I've already had a conversation with my assistant principal about the math department and who is teaching what for next year. And I've also started planning some professional learning for the teachers at my school. I teach almost a full load. I have one extra planning period, and I use that time during the regular school year to plan professional learning. So we've got to do things a little bit differently. I asked teachers what they wanted to learn about, or if they just weren't interested in learning anything, their plate was already full. And so I had several people say that they were interested in learning about just like general tips and tricks. I'm going to offer something on that. And then I had a couple of people who wanted to learn about choice boards. I had shared something about a choice board that I had seen. A couple of people wanted to learn about that. So I'm going to spend the rest of my day off planning professional learning for teachers, but I'm excited because I like helping people. And then I also will probably start doing a little bit of planning for my students. I've got my plans for tomorrow ready, but I'm not ready for Thursday and what I want them to do. I found out my husband had to go into work today, which is good because that means that they're busy, but they need some help in the warehouse. So he's gone to work. So I'm stressed about that a little bit. They've got masks to wear and that kind of thing, but it's just less to worry about when everybody's in the house. And now everybody's not in the house. Thankfully, my own kids are on spring break, so they don't have schoolwork to do. So I'm not having to really help anybody with that. Of course, I'm just having to make sure that they're not like just playing on electronics all day, that they've gotten outside some. And they have. They've done some sidewalk chalk outside, that kind of thing. So tomorrow I have a faculty meeting at 9, and then I will go live with my students at 2 to be a second offering for the lesson I did last week on arithmetic and geometric sequences. And then we will probably go as a family to my parents' family farm. My kids like to go out there, and it's nice to get fresh air. And, of course, there's nobody there, so it's good social distancing. So that's kind of where we are. I'm enjoying checking in and just having a chance to process what I'm thinking and going through. One thing I also wanted to mention was how I check in with students in both Desmos and in Pear Deck. I'm able to give them kind of a check of how are you feeling, and so that's been really helpful. At the beginning of a lesson I will do it, and then at the end of a lesson I will do it. Of course, the ones that are there synchronously, I can see it immediately. I'm able to reach out via email. I've done that with one student and checked in with her. She was stressed out about some stuff, so I told her that I was going to check in every week and see how things were going. Of course, the longer this goes on, the more important that is for me. And also to check in with the teachers and see how they're doing as well. So I'm off to plan. So I decided to do a goose chase, which is an online scavenger hunt. It's an app, just for something fun for my kids to do. And today I discovered who the winner was. They had a couple of things they could do for bonus points. So I went through and found the winner, and I also found a video, and the student said I could share it. So right now I'll show you the video and the gift card that I'm mailing to the student.
I miss seeing my friends every day. I miss going and having like live classes, and I also miss all the teachers that make an impact on my life, like you, Dr. Ballard, and just make my day so much brighter. So that's it.
So one of the things that we do for fun is play a lot of games. We played Monopoly Junior a little while ago, and then my 9-year-old and I are playing Mancala. He beat me the first time, and so we are going to play again because I do not want to lose to a 9-year-old 2 times in a row. So wish me luck. So the update is I won the second round of Mancala, 25-21, and we're going to play a third round, a championship round, to see who the grand champion is. So wish me luck. I'm gonna win. So we just played the championship round and the score was 19-19. So I don't know whether we just call it a draw and we both are winners, or do we play again? So Thomas, what do you think?
Play again so I can beat her.
Well, there you have it. We'll see what happens. So the final verdict is I won 24-22 in the championship round after a repeat play. So I don't think he's very happy. So today is Wednesday. I had my 2 snow days from school, and then I started at 9 o'clock with a faculty meeting that lasted for an hour. And then after that, I responded to emails, planned some lessons, and then took a lunch break and read my book outside for a little bit. All the while, my own children were playing nice and quietly, and my daughter was doing stuff around the house without being asked, so great win. And then I did a live class for my students at 2, finished up a little after 3, and still will have emails coming in that I'll be responding to on my phone. But we drove out to my parents' farm, and we're going to spend some time out here. We've got a horse and 4-wheeler and ATV, other kind of stuff. So we're going to play because the kids, this is their spring break, and they're stuck at home while my husband and I are working. So we're trying to do a little bit of something fun. So I'll have some good videos, hopefully, of us doing fun stuff out at the farm. So what that says is I take A sub n, and that equals my first term plus the term number minus 1 times that common difference. So if I'm doing the same sequence right here, and I want to find the, let's say, the 10th term. Okay, let's see if we can do this. All right, so let's start filling in. A sub n equals, what's the first term in this sequence, my A sub 1?
3.
3. Plus, we'll just leave n minus 1 for now. We'll fill it in and say, and what did you tell me the common difference was for this sequence?
2.
You gotcha. So now we're ready to find the 10th term. So n is equal to 10 because it's my 10th term that I'm dealing with. So A sub 10, the 10th term in this sequence, is equal to 3 plus 10 minus 1 times 2. So 10 minus 1 is, of course, what?
Just 9.
9. And then 9 times 2 is?
18.
18.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And 18 plus 3 is?
21.
21. So the 10th term in this sequence is 21. Now, I could keep going, right? This is the first term, second term, third term, fourth term. And then I would find the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and get there eventually. I could get it the same way. The problem is when I ask you for like the 100th term, you don't want to keep listing this out until you get to the 100th term. That's why we use the explicit formula. Okay? So I thought today I would share a little bit of what might be considered a typical day. I slept in, which before school started I never did. I got up at 5 every day. But I slept in and did a few like personal things, prayers, devotions, journaling kind of stuff. And then I started working out at 9:30, finished at 10, worked out and emailed till 11. At 11, I did a session for teachers on e-learning tips and tricks and tools. I finished that up about 12:15. At 12:30, I had a call with the teacher helping her figure out grades and what she should do, that kind of thing. Then I finished that up about 12:45 or 1, and I ate lunch outside, which was very nice. And then I came back and I had a call at 1:30 that I had scheduled. Finished that up at like 1:45. And then I talked to my assistant principal on the phone about a couple of things and went back outside for just a minute. And then I had a call at 2:45 with a student who was struggling with arithmetic and geometric sequences. And I spent 45 minutes helping him. I've also gone through some assignments that I'm missing from students. Of course, I never have this issue in class because they all do what they're supposed to do. But when they're working remotely and they're dealing with stuff, usually I just reach out and say, hey, I noticed you hadn't turned in such and such, what's going on? Is everything okay? And they appreciate the fact that I'm checking on them. And I really do want to make sure they're okay. And then of course, some of them are fine. They're just being, they're being lazy or that kind of thing. And even their parents will tell me that when I reach out to them. So I reach out to the kids first, via remind or email. And then I will check in with the parents if the students don't reply to me. Most of them will just say I've been really busy or I've had to work or whatever, and then they'll get their work in. So it is currently 3:30. I just got off the phone with my student, and I know that I will have some more emails, and I need to start planning. So I'm not ready for next week and what I need to do for that. So I'm off to plan. So I thought I would give an update from today. It is 6 o'clock. I just stopped my work for the day. At least I think so. But I'm working on making some postcards to send to my students. So I bought a little kit thing or template that I can use on Teachers Pay Teachers for $2. And I'm printing them and trying to make sure they're the right size. And of course I'll have to buy stamps and that kind of thing. But I thought that might be something fun for students to get in the mail. And I am throwing together dinner, which is just spaghetti, and I already had the sauce like made in the freezer. So I have barely spoken to my children today. They've been kind of tending to themselves, so I feel really bad about that, but at least we had a couple of days together, and yesterday we went to the farm. So pretty crazy day, but I'm glad it's almost over. What time you're going to eat lunch today? $12:25 p.m. Okay. All right, so it said 40 minutes. 40 minutes, and then when you click it, it goes 5 minutes every time. So how many sets of 5 are in 40?
8.
Yes. So you need to click it 8 times to go 40 minutes. Yesterday, the governor of South Carolina announced that we would not be going back to school this year. It was something that I expected, but when he said it, it was just kind of like, reality hit in. I had a live call with my students yesterday to go over some half-life stuff with exponential functions, and I almost started crying. I'm going to miss them. And just listening to, I keep getting more of the Flipgrid videos, and just listening to them talk about how a lot of them were saying that my class is the best because it's live, and they like being able to hear somebody teach versus like watching a video, that kind of thing. So I'm glad I've been doing that with them. Hi, I thought I'd share some of the tools that I am using throughout this time at home. Of course, the main thing I use is Google Classroom. I post assignments for and then list the date, and then I have them numbered, like number 1, do this, number 2, that way everything's together. So they get an assignment for each class day, which we're on an AB block, so they get an assignment basically every other day. I have been using Flipgrid, as I've mentioned before, just a couple of times, just because I miss seeing their faces and I want to hear how they're doing, tell me thoughts that they have about a particular assignment or just thoughts in general. I've asked different questions. I've used EdgeElastic, which is a program that enables them to get practice problems and then get immediate feedback. So it can be used for assessment. I've just used it for formative assessment and for feedback for them because they get it instantly. I notice a lot of the students will work at times that I am not working, like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And so that way they're not having to wait for me to check something and give them feedback. They get it instantly. I've used USA Test Prep for the first time. A lot of the places are offering free subscriptions to schools, and so I've taken advantage of that. I've just used it for one class, for one assignment. And then quizzes I've used a couple of times. A lot of these I already used in the classroom, so they're not necessarily new, but just what I've used through distance learning. But quizzes I've used for a couple of quizzes in Algebra 2, and again, they get instant feedback, and they can redo it as many times as necessary, which I didn't always do in the classroom, but it's really made me rethink how I feel about mastery learning and students being able to keep going at something until they really master it. Of course, I've used Google Forms, again, for instant feedback. They get their scores immediately so they know what they understand and what they don't, either as a quiz or just set up as a quiz, even though it's practice. But that way they get it evaluated right away instead of waiting on me for feedback. I've used Pear Deck in my live classes, and that's a way to engage the students in the content as opposed to them just sitting behind their computers. I can't see what they're thinking and feeling and call on them to ask questions as easily, especially a lot of the high schoolers don't want to turn on their cameras, which is fine. So with Pear Deck, I'm able to see exactly what their responses are as they're working with me, and I can correct misunderstandings or things that they're not doing quite right as they work. It's a little bit hard with math because they're having to use their phones or a tablet, and so their writing's not great, but they know I don't care. I'm just trying to make sure that they understand and can do the math. I've used the What's Going On in This Graph from the New York Times, mainly with my Prob and Stat students because there's a lot of great data and graphs with the coronavirus, so that's been really interesting and good for them to see it in the real world. I've used Edpuzzle as a way to provide new content. I'll make a short, 5-10 minute video and embed some questions in there so I can make sure that they're watching it and getting what they need from it. I've used Khan Academy a little bit for my Prob and Stat class, just when I need a practice problem or two, just to make sure that they're on the right track. And then, of course, I get the feedback from that, and they know immediately whether they got it right or wrong as well. I've made videos for my students using Loom, Screencastify, and Screencast-O-Matic, just depending on what the purpose is and where it's going. So I can make quick videos for them. For one particular lesson in Prob and Stats, I knew that they were going to struggle with it a little bit on expected values, so I made 4 different videos explaining the 4 examples. And so I was able to give them feedback through the video. And then one of my favorites that I use in the classroom, and I'm still able to use it digitally, is Desmos. And so I'm using that for Algebra 2 and able to provide some good interactive content. And so it doesn't have to just be like skill and drill, like they've had to think through things and, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And some inquiry activities. So that's been really nice. I stay organized by just the main things that I did when I was in the classroom. Lots of lists, lots of, I do some time blocking so that like in the classroom I had, you had your class period. So that was kind of your time blocking. But now things are very open. So the time blocking enables me to say, okay, I'm going to work out from this time to this time. I'm going to respond to emails from this time to this time. I'm going to plan a lesson from this time to this time. I'm going to take a break from this time to this time. So that's been very helpful. And then just lots of lists and making sure I keep my inbox cleaned out. And I'm constantly updating grades, getting emails from Google Classroom when students submit work late and so forth. So I hope some of that helps. Several days ago, I went walking, socially distant, of course, with my friend, and we were talking about what we had learned or what we've been thinking about throughout our online learning and time at home. And she was talking about how we, as educators, are really now having the opportunity to think outside the box. Some of the things that we considered, normal and just status quo in the past have given us an opportunity now to think more deeply. One of those that I mentioned was seat time and how we require students to have their bottoms in chairs for so many hours and how maybe that's not the right thing for students. And another thing that she and I were talking about was something that I have really thought about throughout this time, and that is the fact that students have so much going on outside of just what's happening in the classroom. I've always been mindful of that when I was in the classroom, but it's even more apparent now that we're doing this time of online learning. I've heard a lot of people talk about grace over grades and things like that, and I think that that's something that teachers have been mindful of before this, but it's even more important now. And I think for me, it's even more important to really think about what's happening outside their lives, outside the walls of the classroom, and what's happening in their lives at home. Relationships are the key, and we've all known that, and it's even been more apparent now during this time. I've had students reach out when they've seen things that reminded them of something in the classroom. I've had students reach out thanking me for things that I've done, and those have meant a lot to me. Being able to be authentic throughout making the videos has been important. I don't do much, I don't plan much before I make the videos, and I think that's important. It's always important to me for people to be authentically themselves. I put on a little makeup so I don't look too crazy. I try to get somewhere where the lighting's okay, but I don't really edit or think about, what can I do that's going to look good on a video. Like, I'm just doing what I do and then make the videos to go along with that, to show that to you. So some of the things may not be as exciting or as cool if I had put lots of time and effort into them, but I'm really just surviving and showing what's happening on a day-to-day basis here in my home and in my life. Another thing that's been really important to me to see is the importance of math in context. That's always been a big deal to me. It's always been something that's important, and I've tried to create lessons and activities that showcase that, but it was even more apparent during this time. When we went to online learning, I had 2 units left, exponential functions and rational functions. And I knew that the spread of COVID-19 was growing exponentially, and so I decided just on a whim to switch those. Normally I would cover rationals and then exponentials, and I'm so glad that I did. It's been really interesting for me to have real data to show the students. It's been interesting for them to read about things. I had a student email me the other day about an article about half-life, when we were studying half-life and the half-life of COVID and how it dramatically decreases when temperature and increases and humidity increases and being in the sun. So it was really interesting. So I think the kids have really enjoyed that, and they thanked me for that in different ways. And then, of course, just having the opportunity to reflect. I always reflect after lessons, just kind of in my head, but having the opportunity to reflect on this whole process. For my family, I've been doing a diary kind of, just when I think about it, once or twice a week, where I write down what we've been doing, what we've been thinking, how we've been feeling. But this, having an opportunity to think about my professional life and how things have been going, has been really interesting. So I hope you've enjoyed the journey, and thanks for coming along.